Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Healing Her podcast. I am very excited that you are here listening today, and I'm really excited for the episode that I'm going to be sharing with you. This is a solo episode of this podcast, and it's one that I've really been excited to record. It's all about my spiritual coming out story and how I came out to friends and family and the world with my truth and my spirituality and standing in that and how it felt and what came up for me, and was it scary? Was it hard? What did I find with it? Did I get pushback from anybody? All of that good stuff is what we're going to talk about in today's episode. I've been getting a lot of questions about this, and even in Lynn's episode, we talked a little bit about spirituality and religion and that tie there and that connection. And so I'm going to start with that. But before I get into my truth with this and my coming out story for you, I wanted to tell you that this solo episode is sponsored by the Healing Her Collective. And the Healing Her Collective, if you're not familiar, is my monthly membership program where I am your spiritual personal trainer, and I am there to help you develop a daily spiritual practice. So that's kind of the meat of the program, is that there are spiritual practices, new ones every single month that you get. I record a Kundalini class for you. There's a meditation of the month. I do a Reiki session each month. We have a crystal highlight of the month. Then I do weekly seminars based around the topic. So in January, we talked all about intentional living. February was about manifesting. And this March, we have been talking all about intuition and strengthening and developing our intuition. So every month there's a new topic, and all of the spiritual practices relate to that topic and helping you heal any blocks relating to that topic, and then help you bring more good vibrations and energies into your life through your daily spiritual practice. So I'm really there as your guide. I am not your healer. You are your own best healer. I simply facilitate that healing through the Healing Her Collective in this program. So this podcast is actually a projection of the Healing Her Collective, and a lot of people who've been on it so far have been members of the Healing Her Collective, and they're doing a lot of deep soul work and emotional purging and just eliminating fear and worry from life and really coming into that space and vibration of love and oneness and happiness. And so that's really what we're all about. We're about healing from the inside out. We have a beautiful community, and there's just so much involved with the Healing Her Collective that I know you would really love. The Healing Her Collective is $33 a month, and there is absolutely no contract or commitment, so you can join anytime you'd like. I chose a number 33 because one, it was a download. It came to me, that number, for the cost of this monthly membership. But it also is a master number and master teacher. It's very closely tied to the Ascended Masters. And it is just a number of teaching and of courage and bravery. And so I really wanted to bring that into the Healing Her Collective. So it's really connected to our guides and angels and ascended masters who came before us. And it's just a beautiful space where we get vulnerable, and through that we heal. And it's absolutely amazing. And Kundalini yoga is definitely at the heart of it, but we also talk a lot about Reiki and crystals, and I do card readings in there. And we talk a lot about mindset mastering topics and techniques, and we do a lot of different practices. So this is really a monthly program that's not just about gaining knowledge. It's really about actually doing and practicing and putting these principles into your everyday life so that you actually make changes. Because we can read all the spirituality, self-help, personal development books in the world, but until we start practicing these things and bringing them into our life and forming new habits and new beliefs and getting rid of kind of the old self-limiting beliefs and the old bad habits that we have, nothing really changes. And so I love to teach, and then I also love to practice. And so we really put those together, and it combines this beautiful program called the Healing Her Collective. Many of you know, listening, that I am a personal trainer, and I ran a health and fitness business for kind of a long time, 3 years, but was training people for about 10 years. And these are kind of like your spiritual workouts. That is exactly how I would describe it. That's why I call myself your spiritual personal trainer, because I'm teaching you about spirituality and about different topics every single month, and then giving you things to do to strengthen not only your knowledge, but your practice in those areas. So it's really cool. And I think it's really different. And if you really do want to heal, if you really do want to create the life of your dreams and the life that you want to live, this is such an amazing program. It's why I created it. I was training people to help them feel good in their bodies and their bodies to look a certain way, the way that they wanted them to. And now I'm really wanting you to feel the way that you want to. And so I'm your spiritual personal trainer and giving you your spiritual daily workouts. And I think that's really cool. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that tidbit in there because I absolutely love that. I love the spiritual personal trainer term, and I love the spiritual workouts because that's really what they are. We're working you out from the inside. It's awesome. I would love for all of you and more to join the Healing Her Collective. It is such a special place, and I truly believe that it's doing so much good. It's already changed the lives of so many people that are in there. And if you want to read more of those testimonials, you can check out the website. It's abbyeokeefe.com, and you can just go straight to that home page, and the Healing Her Collective information is all on that front page. You can join directly from there and get going. And if you're listening to this podcast, I have a very special offer for you in joining the Healing Her Collective. So if you're listening and you join the Healing Her Collective, all you need to do is send me an email to abbyeokeefe@gmail.com. And I will schedule a free 15-minute Reiki session with you, a distance session. And in this session, I'll do a card reading for you, and then I tune into your energy. I clear your chakras. I work on any blocks that you have. And I facilitate a healing for you mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and can tune into and ask any questions of your guides and of your angels that you'd like me to work on. And I just am very happy to do that. So if you join and you are listening to this podcast, after you join, just send me an email and let me know that you joined the Healing Her Collective, and we will schedule that session. So that is all my beginning announcements. And now we'll go ahead and get into my story. So for those of you who are new to the Healing Her podcast, my name is Abby O'Keefe, and I am your host and the creator of this podcast. And I did record the first episode for you guys talking about my truth and my story, which if you want to go listen to that, you can learn more about how I got to where I am today and how I started the Healing Her Collective and the Healing Her podcast and all about my fitness past and all of that good stuff. But today we're really here to talk about my spiritual coming out story, which is something that can be super, super, super hard. Any coming out story of any truth, anything that you believe in, anything that's in your soul and in your heart can be really scary because there is absolutely a fear of rejection and a fear of judgment. And none of us want to be judged and none of us want to be rejected. It's something that triggers us into feeling like we're not good enough and we're not worthy enough and we don't deserve the good things, right? And it makes us just feel less than. And so when we really believe in something, but it's kind of controversial or really scares us, we really hesitate. We want to know how everybody's going to respond, and we want to feel supported, and we want to feel loved, and we want to feel important, and we want to feel heard. More than anything, what I have found through building communities online for so many years is that people want to feel heard. They want their truth, they want their voice to be heard. They want to feel like people hear them. It doesn't matter if we agree or disagree with each other. At the end of the day, we all just want to feel like we have been heard. And that's something that was important to me with my spiritual coming out and just feeling so strongly about my truth and about my path and about what I was doing that I knew I needed to make a change and I needed to tell the world about my new path. So let's go ahead to the beginning of the story, which is really all the way back to my upbringing. So I was raised in a Christian home. I'm a Baptist, and I went to church every Sunday as a kid. I did Sunday school, went to church. My mom took us to church, and I loved it. I loved church so much. I felt so connected to myself at church. I felt connected to a higher power, what I would call God, but it can be whatever you believe in. And church was really a sanctuary for me, and I very much enjoyed church. And then in college, when I got older, I kind of stopped going to church. And even when I graduated college and moved to Boston, I stopped going to church. And I was dating somebody at the time who didn't really believe in God, in a higher power at all, which was really challenging for me because I absolutely did. And I always felt very connected to something bigger than me that was guiding me. My whole life, I've always felt that. And I've always felt protected, but I've still always felt anxious, which has been, a constant recurring theme throughout my life. So I wasn't always sure of everything, but I knew something was there. And I believed in that, absolutely. So I ended up breaking up with my ex, and we stopped dating after about 4 years, and I started going back to church, and it immediately felt like home to me. I loved church. It took me a while to find one that I liked, but I found one and I absolutely loved it so much, and it felt very much like home. I just feel this profound connection when I'm in church and singing specifically. I love singing. I love doing that. It just connects me to a higher power, and I just absolutely loved it. I should go back a little bit to high school because I just skipped right over this, which is a really big part of my spiritual journey. So I went to a Catholic high school for 5 years, and I was not Catholic. I was Baptist, and it was a very small Catholic school in West Virginia, and I was the new kid, and I was bullied there for being the new kid, and the girls didn't like me, and I struggled a lot my first year. But most of what I struggled with was when it came to religion, because when you go to Catholic school, most Catholic schools require you to take religion, and we had to take religion every year. And I didn't mind going to religion class, but every Wednesday we would have mass. So we would have church service in our gym. And if you are not Catholic, you can't take communion, and you really can't participate in church. You can sing and things, but with Catholicism, there are very specific things that you say, responsorials and refrains, things that you say after the priest says something. And I just didn't know what those were. And over time I did learn, but I always felt very out of place. And a big part of that was that our Catholic school really isolated me and another girl who was not Catholic, and we kind of would sit up high in the bleachers away from everybody so that people would know that we weren't Catholic. So I felt very singled out. I felt like I was ostracized from that community and that I wasn't welcome in that community, which was the first time I ever knew that that was happening with religion, because I had felt like such a part of a community in my Baptist church, and we welcomed absolutely anyone and everyone. And this was something that I saw that really struck a nerve with me and that really irritated me. I really hated that I couldn't take communion and that I couldn't participate, and that I felt like I was seen as less than because I wasn't Catholic, and nobody really affirmed that I was equal. They even made us sit somewhere different so that people knew we weren't Catholic, and there were no mistakes made, and that was really upsetting to me. And I really struggled with that for a long time and kind of looked at Catholicism in a really bad way. Now, I am married to a Catholic, so I want to say that here, but that just put a bitter taste in my mouth initially. I love all religions and welcome all religions and all thought leaders and all schools of thought. I think it's so interesting, and I love learning about all of it. But that was my high school experience with religion. So I stopped going to church in college, and then after my ex and I broke up out of college, I started going back to church, and I found one that I really loved, and I started working in a new place, and I was really, really, really enjoying it and loving it. And then I met a nice Catholic man, and we moved back to Minnesota, and we're married now. So he's my husband, and we did get married in a Catholic church. And what's most important to him when it comes to his Catholic faith is really the level of community with growing up in the church. And wow, I just started to feel a little bit warm talking about this, because one, I feel like I shouldn't be speaking for my husband, so I'm going to stop talking about that and just keep talking about my experience. But this does bring up a lot of things. There's kind of like fire in my throat right now, and I feel my throat chakra is feeling so blocked and so uncomfortable, because religion and spirituality is a deep topic, you guys. It is. We get in there with it, and you kind of can't hold back. If you're going to go for it, you got to go all the way, right? So that's really what I want to do, but I'm going to be totally honest, and I'm just sitting here like, holy crap, what am I doing right now? So anyway, we got married in a Catholic church, and I was very fine with that. It wasn't a mass. It was a very short ceremony, and we did pre-Cana, which is a requirement for getting married in a Catholic church, which is like doing a retreat and little meetings with a priest and things like that. And I actually honestly loved it. I have always felt connected in church, you guys. That is something that has been important to me. I felt very connected to God my entire life, to this higher power, and I always knew that there was God. I always believed in God very firmly in it. I never questioned it ever in my life. There was never a period where I was like, maybe God doesn't exist. That really didn't happen for me. And I would receive messages from God. I always felt like God would speak to me. And the way that I spoke to God was like a friend. I said my prayers every single night. And I used to talk to God when I was scared or nervous and just ask him, to calm my nerves or to bring me peace or to show me that he was with me. And I would always get signs. And so I never had any doubt in my mind that God existed, that a higher power existed. And I also want to say here that obviously I'm talking about being raised in a Christian household. So I am talking about that God in a way, but I see God as so much more now. And so I also want to say, when I say God and when I say what I believe in, it can be whatever you believe in. This is my story, remember, but I feel like I need to put out there that God, as I'm talking about, the universe, a higher power, your highest self, spirit, angels, those are all part of it, To me, God is love. And I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, and I organized this and I wanted to go down my points, but I also knew that I'd get in here, and I meditated before this and I prayed before this, and I said, I asked my soul to speak through me, and I asked my truth to come out in the way that it's supposed to. And so the way you're hearing this is absolutely the way that you're supposed to be hearing this. So we got married in a Catholic church. We did all the pre-Cana. I absolutely loved it. I loved the retreat. I honestly wanted to host the retreats and be a leader, and we applied for it. But because I'm not Catholic, we couldn't be hosts or teachers in the pre-Cana course that people who are going to get married have to take, which I thought was so interesting that came back as an issue for me that needed healing, because I remember getting that email a little over a year ago and thinking well, screw that. What the heck? Just another reason that the Catholic Church wants to ostracize me, or doesn't want me to, be involved with them, and feeling well, I'm not going to convert, just kind of to spite that. But anyway, I'm not going to anyway, but I was just so irritated by that. I was but I'm a good person, and I want to share marriage and the importance of the things that are in marriage, and your relationship with your spouse, and your relationship with God, with other people. And so we had applied to do it, and we basically got rejected because I'm not Catholic, and they require you both to be Catholic in order to do it, which is fine. I totally understand. It's a Catholic church teaching. So anyway, fast forward again, we're married now. We got married in 2016, November 12th of 2016. And about a year ago, I had my big spiritual awakening. And this was a time where I was really struggling with anxiety in a way that I never had before. I was not able to sleep. I was really not functioning well. I was really struggling to get any work done, and I was really scared of everything. I was scared that something was going to go wrong in every second of every day, and I was constantly worrying about it. So then I manifested a lot of physical pain for myself in the form of headaches and palpitations and chest tightness and shortness of breath and panic attacks and just all kinds of crazy manifestations that came from my anxiety. And so I was shaken so hard. This was April 10th of 2017. I literally am staring at this thing on my wall. It's called the night sky, and you can get a replica of the sky at a certain date and time with longitude and latitude, where you were and all of that. You can get it made. I think it's actually called at the night sky on Instagram or something. And this was such a profound moment in my life that I had one made. And so it's right in front of me above my desk. So I remember, and I named it the day everything changed. And this was the day of my spiritual awakening and the day that my entire life changed. So you already know I've had this connection with God and with church my entire life. That's how I was raised, and it really stayed with me. And then on this night, April 10th of 2017, I absolutely got destroyed. I couldn't even explain to you what happened, but it was so bad that I could not move. I could not breathe. I thought I was going to die. My husband had to come home from work, and this was not a normal panic attack. At this point, I hadn't been sleeping. I had been having panic attacks 4 or 5 times a day. This was something so much more than that. And I just cried constantly. My husband had to take 3 days off of work to take me to the doctor, and I was put on medication. And then after that, I didn't sleep for another 4 days. And the easiest way to describe this was that I was shaken so hard by my fear. My fear absolutely consumed my entire body in this moment on April 10th, in this day, that it literally blew up inside me. It cracked me open so that I could see the light. And I was on medication for about 3 months, kind of leveling me out. And I was able to, I just fully dove into everything spiritual. This is wild going back to this time because I think about it sometimes, but going back to all the details of it is just, it's wild. So here's kind of the series of events. So I got cracked open, right? And I had this major spiritual awakening. And after I started taking medication, I would say after that moment, and this isn't because of the medication, this was because of the cracking open and just me being able to see and be calm and like see for the first time what was really happening. I saw everything differently, everything. And I completely changed my entire life. So the first thing that I did was I became a vegan in about a week. And I just knew I had to be. There's nothing else that I could explain to you other than I knew I needed to be a vegan. And at that point, I'd already known that I was lactose intolerant, so I wasn't having any dairy. So I just completely eliminated meat. And then I read a book a day for about 35 days, at least one book a day. And I absorbed all of the knowledge that I could. I took so many online seminars from Gabby Bernstein, from Wayne Dyer, from Doreen Virtue, from so many beautiful souls and beautiful people, and Marianne Williamson. I mean, I did so much diving into the spiritual world, and I had never gone down this way before. I mean, the only spiritual book that I'd really ever read, besides like personal development books and things like that, was the Bible. And I'd never even really read the Bible. I just read a few passages in it. But my entire life, and I should say this, I never felt like the Bible was my book. And I don't say that in any like sacrilegious way at all. I just had a very, very, very intense personal connection with this higher power that I called God. I knew him. I knew that I knew him my whole life. I knew that he was protecting me and guiding me. And so that was really what God was for me as a child and growing up, and still is. It's this very personal connection to something I know is guiding and protecting me. And that's always how I felt. I never went to the Bible for different things. I really just went straight to God. I always would just ask God. I would just say, God, I need you to tell me about this because I don't understand what's going on and I'm really confused, or I'm really in pain, or I'm really heartbroken, or I'm really, hurt, and I'm really confused and just I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling worried, whatever it was I was feeling, I always went to God. And so that's something that I want to make sure you guys know too. So when I started diving into this world of spirituality and all of these books about coming back to love and A Course in Miracles and all of this stuff, it opened my soul up to a space that I didn't know existed. I did not know that this thing was inside me that had so much to say. And I read all those books, a book a day for 35 days. And then I stopped reading completely. I stopped reading and I started Kundalini yoga. So that would be about 30 days. Now we're about 30 to 35 days after my spiritual awakening. And I found Kundalini yoga. Now, I had known what Kundalini yoga was because I had been reading Gabby Bernstein's books. I had read a couple of her books the year before, like May Cause Miracles and things like that. And I'd read books on anxiety, but I'd never really dove into the world of spirituality, like the whole world, that whole realm of beautiful, amazing things. And so I didn't really know that much about Kundalini yoga, but I knew what it was. And I knew that in the past, it had absolutely freaking terrified me. And when Gabby would write about it and I researched it, I saw scary things about Kundalini risings and awakenings and just these crazy things and stories about people like going crazy. And so I was like, hell no, I am not doing that. I don't know what the heck that is, but do not sign me up for that. That sounds terrifying. I'm scared of it. And this was, in my anxiety cycle. So I was literally scared of everything. But especially researching it, I was like, why would Gabby teach this? This is like ridiculous. This is so scary. This sounds absolutely awful. And then I found the beautiful ladies from Elevate the Globe who first introduced me to practicing Kundalini yoga, which by the way is 1000% not scary. And I'm so glad that I tried it. And I'll talk about this more on a solo episode all about Kundalini that I'll record for you guys. But a lot of the stories and research that you do about Kundalini yoga with those crazy experiences are completely made up and false and not the Kundalini that I practice. Kundalini yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, which is what I teach and what I practice, is 100,000% safe and life-changing. And through them, I did my first class probably about 35 days after this awakening. And the best way I can describe it is that it felt like coming home. It felt like I had done it a million times in my life, and I just remembered how to do it for the first time during this lifetime. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences. I cried the whole class, and I cried for hours after it. And I have not stopped doing Kundalini yoga every day since then. I practice Kundalini every single day. I am now a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I share these practices online, free online live classes twice a week. And it's a huge part of the Healing Her Collective because I have seen how Kundalini yoga has completely and utterly changed every single part of my life. I am no longer an anxious person, and I have massive moments of gratitude and peace and love and just emotions that I thought I had fully experienced. But until you strip away all the crap that you hold on to, you don't really know what that feels like. And I know what that feels like now and how profound it is. And so it's a huge part of my purpose to share these teachings now. But I practiced Kundalini yoga. I found that about 30 days into it. And then through Kundalini, really started diving into everything else. 1 week after I started doing Kundalini yoga, I knew that I needed to write a book. And it's funny because in January of 2017, for my New Year's resolution, I told my husband, I think I'm going to write a book this year. And it makes sense now that right before January 1st, this came through to me because I really take that time at the new year to be still. And it's probably one of the only still moments in my past that I had taken for myself and really asked myself, what I want to accomplish. And from doing that, I really felt like there was a book inside of me, and I didn't even do anything about it. I think I wrote once a day for like 4 days after the new year started, and then I was like, I don't know what I'm even supposed to write about. None of this even makes sense. Well, then I had my spiritual awakening, and I dove into this realm of spirituality, and then I found Kundalini yoga, and a week after I found Kundalini yoga, I was in meditation and I heard a voice that said, you need to start writing now. And right after that class, I grabbed my computer and I grabbed this stone that I'm holding right now. It is called celestite. It's one of the first crystals that I ever owned. And I have this really big cluster of it. And it's absolutely like the most beautiful blue, gray, just gorgeousness ever. Definitely Google it and look it up. And I grabbed it and I held it. And in 3 weeks, I started and finished a book. And it came directly from my soul. It's the only way I know how to describe it because I tell people that I did not write this book. This just came from something within me that I did not know even existed until recently. And it'll be published this year, so you guys can stay tuned for that. I'll make sure to let you all know when it's going to be out. But it's a collection of life lessons called My Power Project or The Power Project. And it's really about accessing that power within you. And I love it so much, and I'm so excited to be able to share that with you guys really soon. But I wrote that book, and then I just kind of kept going. From that, I started doing oracle card readings. It just kept progressing. I kept getting messages and more messages and more messages to go further and further and further until I was doing an oracle card reading for somebody probably 2 weeks after I had started working with cards, and it turned into a mediumship reading where I was talking with her mother on the other side and communicating messages. And I ended that reading and I honestly did not know what happened. I sat there in shock for about an hour. Like, what in the world just happened? But it was so right and it was so true and it felt so natural. It also felt like coming home. Mediumship comes very naturally to me. And since then, I've done a past life regression and know that I was a medium in a past life, but I was beheaded for it, which makes sense with all my throat chakra issues, which we can talk about in another episode. But beyond that, I started doing a little bit more mediumship. I started a group called Sisters of Power. It's a free Facebook community, and it's still up if you guys want to join it. And I would do a lot of live readings in there. I did a lot of daily messages and things like that. And really, that was the beginning of my coming out story. Now that we're 25 minutes into this podcast, I'm finally telling you about coming out. But I really felt like I needed to give you background into everything leading up to this. I was running, amidst all of this, an online health and wellness business called 3S Fitness that I rebranded late last year to Body by Intuition and is now no longer a company, but at that time, I was running it, and this whole time that I was awakening to my inner power and my highest self, I was feeling incredibly conflicted, and I was feeling like it did not align with what I wanted to do anymore and my purpose, and it just wasn't an industry that I wanted to be a part of anymore, and I just knew that I needed to do something different. So I started that Facebook group, Sisters of Power. I started working on those things, and I kind of was really secretive about it at first. Like, I didn't really post that much about it. I just let people who found it naturally kind of find it. But I knew that it was coming, that I was going to be posting on Facebook and Instagram. And with my coming out, I remember the day, I remember the post that I posted on Instagram, because that's really when I announced it. I hadn't posted anything on the stories. Everything was very health, wellness, nutrition related, because that's where I was working and that's what I was doing. But I knew that I needed to come out and be honest about who I was and what I had discovered, which is this unbelievable innate connection to the power of love and the power of myself, this thing within me that I wanted to share. It was, at the time, I don't think that I 100% knew it, but now I know that as my truth, and that I was recognizing that for the very first time. And so I posted on Instagram. I remember posting it and freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, everyone is going to see this. What are they going to say? Like, what is going to happen? My family is going to see this because I shared it on Facebook, and my sisters all follow me on Instagram. And what is even going to happen? And mind you, I posted on Instagram maybe 2 weeks before my family vacation, which, yeah, it's pretty ballsy. But I think I posted what it was crystals and cards, I believe, was my first ever really spiritual post. And I remember that no family said anything right away. I actually was incredibly surprised by the public outpouring of love from people who had followed me for a really long time, how much support and love and just kindness that they gave me for opening up and being vulnerable. And it reminded me that everybody does want to be heard, and we want to see the true nature of people, and we want to see authenticity and vulnerability. And when we see that, we naturally want to support and love that person. And so the response publicly was overwhelmingly positive and loving. Now, nobody said anything to me until my family vacation, which happened a couple weeks later. And in that, nothing happened right away in vacation. But a couple of days after getting there came kind of the barrage. I was approached by one of my sisters, and she kind of told me that the whole family was concerned about me. They didn't know what I was doing. They thought that I was kind of going a little bit crazy. I've always been a little bit of the black sheep. I get along super well with my family, and I love them so much, but I've always been the one that dyed my hair blonde and that got piercings and that has tattoos. But I was always the one that was just a little bit different. And so they were all super concerned about me, like for my mental health. And at that point, I was not taking my anxiety medication anymore, and they were really worried about that. And just there was a lot of concern. And at the time, I was already so worried about being judged and so scared of what people were going to think of me that it really hurt and it really stung. And I definitely reacted in a more defensive way than I wanted to going in, because my husband told me, like, it doesn't matter what anybody says, like, you know your path. My husband is the most beautiful soul in the entire world. He is my twin flame, and he's such a perfect mirror of everything that I need to see, and I'm a perfect mirror for everything he needs to see, and we're really opposites, and we work so well. He's just one of the most compassionate, understanding, and genuinely kind people. He supports me no matter what I do. I mean, I completely changed my entire life in 2.5 months, and he just is steady. He is just a rock. He just is amazing, and it's just he's so beautiful, and I'm so lucky to have him. And so he was so supportive of all of this, even though he wasn't really into it, didn't really fully understand it, fully embraced this side of me, which was unbelievable to watch. It's really unbelievable when you are coming into your truth and coming into your own, and people support you. It's just, it's such a good thing, you guys. It's such a good thing. Be kind to people. Be kind to people, because you have no idea what's going on with them. And so back to the story, I reacted a little bit defensively to my family, and I was really feeling like, why can't they just be happy for me? Why can't they just understand that my anxiety is like so much better, and I found all these things that I love so much, and just let me be who I am? And instead I felt very judged. I felt very much like an outcast and like somebody who didn't belong, and that just became very clear to me. And looking back, it's really easy to see that it was a huge change for them, and I didn't tell any of them. I did not approach any of my family, which maybe I should have done, but I honestly don't think I would have done any of this differently. But they really wanted me to just tell them about this before I posted it publicly. but that's not really how I wanted to do it. And part of that was because I was scared of what they were going to say, and I really didn't want to tell them at all. I just wanted them to find out. And that's really what it was about. So I didn't go to my family and say like, I'm spiritual and I do crystals and I get Reiki and I do Kundalini yoga and let me tell you about all this stuff. I did not want to do that with my family. I just wanted to publicly come out and then let them figure it out. And that is not necessarily the best way to do this, but I believe it was the best way for me and that it all worked out as it was meant to. And so that's what I did. And so it makes perfect sense the way that they responded. And I responded defensively and I told them, you don't need to worry about me. I don't know why you would. Like, I'm telling you, I'm happy. And they couldn't understand that I was happy doing all of this. They really couldn't. And they couldn't accept it for a little while. But I knew that I was on the right path. And the biggest thing with coming out in any way, but spiritually for me, coming out, the biggest thing was trusting in that part of me, trusting that I knew and believed in what I was doing and the path that I was on. And in doing that, I had this unwavering faith in everything. And so through that, I knew that it was all going to be okay. So you have to be really confident in yourself and your truth to be able to stand out and put yourself out there and be able to talk about it. Because I think that otherwise we become a little bit more wavering and we don't stand firm in our truth and we don't stand firm in what we believe in. And I think that's a really important part of exclaiming ourselves and who we are to the world, is to be confident in that. And so I was really confident in that. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be tested, because I was, and my confidence did waver a few times. But at the end of the day, I knew this was so much bigger than me. And so that was a really big part of, my coming out and my path. I remember when I posted my first YouTube video that was spiritual in nature. And mind you, I started this YouTube channel 8 or 9 years ago, and it was about beauty products and makeup and skincare and all of that. And so I posted a spiritual video, and I remember the first comment I got on that video was somebody who told me that I was a sinner and that I was going to hell and that I shouldn't get into any of this bullcrap. And she didn't say bullcrap. She said the more explicit version of that. But I remember feeling so hurt and so judged. But I also was able to have compassion for her and whatever it is that she had been through and whatever it is that she had been holding on to that made her react in that way to my truth. And everybody, here's the thing with just coming out spiritually, everybody isn't going to react in a positive way, but that's okay. It really is. It really is okay. You have to be comfortable with yourself and your truth and what you believe in. And then by sharing that and standing in that, you can be comfortable in it because you're comfortable with who you are and what you're going to be sharing. And that was a big part of it for me. I knew and still know what is and was true to me. And a really big piece of this was that after a while, after the initial conversation with my family, that I spoke to them after that, after that they were so concerned for my health and my well-being and wanted to know if I was crazy and wanted to know if, because they were all Christians, they didn't know if I worshiped angels or if I still believed in God or what was going on with me. And I'm going to get to that at the very end of this podcast. But I reacted defensively to that and then spoke to them, months later, and they were able to better understand it. And do they still fully understand it? No, they don't. My mom still talks about it with me, and she's still concerned when she sees me posting things about cards or messages or angels and things like that. And she's still not fully comfortable with it, but it's okay because I'm comfortable with it. And a big part of it for me in realizing this as I've been spiritually coming out, because I really came out in last June, and then it's only been, 8-9 months. So a big part of it is to remember and remind myself that I don't have to defend my choices and my spirituality. I'm more than happy to sit and listen to others' beliefs and opinions and be comfortable with my own. I don't need to defend myself and my beliefs to anybody. And that's not because my beliefs are better than everybody else and everybody should just believe what I believe. And if they don't, then they don't deserve my time or my breath or a waste of my energy. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you can be comfortable with what you believe in and your truth without judging others on theirs. And I think that's a really important lesson to take from any coming out, right? Everybody, at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, everybody wants to feel heard. And if all of our truths were the same and all of our journeys and our paths were the same, this world would be boring. It wouldn't be what it is. Part of our purpose here is to grow and evolve. And to do that, we have to see other people as different from us so that we can appreciate their stories. And yes, there is this sense of oneness and we're all connected by this thread of love and we're mirrors for each other where we see in others what we need to heal personally. And that's absolutely true. But we are all different and unique for a reason. Our truths are different and what we believe is different and all of that is okay. So I have come to terms with the fact that I don't need to defend myself or my beliefs at all. All I can do is share and come from a good, kind place. And in doing that, I know that that is what people are receiving from me. If I am putting hate and aggression and judgment behind my sharing, behind my truth, that's what you're going to get back. But if you put love and kindness and gentleness and authenticity, that is what people are going to hear from you. And that's what's most important for me, to share in that way and to teach in that way. That is what I'm all about, coming from an authentic and vulnerable place. I teach vulnerability, so I try to practice it the most, because I want you guys to see that it's not something I'm scared of and that it really does work and it really has healed so much of my life. And I know that it's going to heal so much more too. So I really love to listen to other people's beliefs and their stories and their truths. It's why I created this podcast, and be comfortable with my own. And if somebody tries to attack me or punish me for mine, I just allow them to speak and I really respond with okay. And I don't respond in any kind of negative way like okay, whatever. Not like that at all. I just say, okay. And that's a really interesting, way to say that or way to think about that. Because then they feel heard. At the end of the day, it is all about that. We want to feel seen and heard. And if we give that to ourselves and we give that to others, everything really is okay. And so that's really how I like to respond. We all don't believe the same things, and that's okay. I also hold no resentment or judgment for other people's beliefs, and that's a big thing that this spiritual journey of mine has taught me. I know how quickly all of that can change. I know how quickly you can go from being a devoted Catholic to calling on angels and the universe for signs and reading all about Buddhist teachings and everything changing and the world being turned upside down a little bit. When you awaken to the power that's within you, things change and you see things differently. And I don't judge people because I didn't want to be judged. It was my biggest fear in coming out. I did not want to be judged. And I recognized that people probably would judge me. So I don't want to be that for others. I want to hold space of no judgment for people. I want to simply be an ear, a sounding board, offer guidance when asked for it, or when prompted for it, but really just to help people be seen and heard. And that's a big part of this journey for me. So that's kind of my coming out story in a nutshell. I want to end by touching on what I believe now. I came from this really Christian Baptist household, right? And I think you guys are all probably wondering, well, does she still believe in God? When is that happening? And here's the thing. I don't think that all of the technical sides of religion and spirituality are what's important. I believe in being a good person. I believe in being the world's best domino. One of my new favorite quotes from my new favorite show, Kevin Probably Saves the World, which if you haven't watched it, you need to go watch it. It's all about synchronicities in the universe and being a kind person. And in it, he says, well, I'm just the world's best domino. He's talking to somebody and kind of asking them. And he just focuses on being a good person and on coming from a space of love. And what I have learned just like vulnerability is the key to all healing, is that love is the thread that connects us to each other and connects us to God. And I do still very much speak to God and call this higher power God. And I'd say, my beliefs have definitely, I would say, evolved, not changed or, done a complete 180, but they have evolved. I really believe in many other things. I work a lot with angels, and I have a lot of connection with angels and with spirit. And I just think my connection to my own love, and then the love that I share with other people and with God and the universe, is this unconditional force and power within me that I can access whenever I want to. And that's been transformational for me. I think love is the greatest power on earth. I believe, if you want to know when it comes to Christianity what I believe in a 100% loving God and absolutely nothing else. I do not believe in a vengeful God. I do not believe in original sin. I do not believe in a God that is anything but loving, because I believe that God is absolutely 1,000% pure love and light, and that He made us in that image, and that we all have this deep love within us that we can access, like I said, whenever we want to. And it's easier for some, it's harder for others, but we can all get there. And so I choose to not only believe that love is the most powerful force on earth, but that all human beings are good, and that sometimes it takes longer to discover that, and it's harder to see that in other people. But I do believe that we are all good, and that we have this pure love within us that we can access. And we may not always make the best decisions, and we make mistakes, absolutely. And sometimes we can do really, really hurtful, terrible, awful things. But inherently, I believe that we are all good, and I like to see that in people. And that's really important to me. And it's an important part of what I believe in and of my spiritual journey. So if you guys have questions about this, I'm feeling like I covered everything. I know I talked a lot about a lot of different things. So if there's anything that you want to hear another episode on, or hear me talk about more, please email me at abbyeokeefe@gmail.com. And remember that everyone's story is different. If there is one thing I'd really want you to take from this podcast episode, it's in relation to judgment. And I think that we judge ourselves and others so harshly, and we have these assumptions or preconceived notions or just ideas of the outcome that we want, or the personality types and mannerisms and things that we want other people to have. And we're very critical, and we're very judgmental of a lot of people. And what I would really want you to take from this episode is to be compassionate and kind and open towards all human beings, even ones who have maybe treated you poorly or made mistakes when it comes to your friendship or your relationship, and really try to see people through the lens of love. I think that we get really scared to come out in any way, whether it's talking about our sexuality or our spirituality or anything else. We're scared to talk about our truth and share our story because we don't want to be judged or critiqued. And I think that comes from doing a lot of that and experiencing a lot of that. And so I would just ask you to be compassionate towards the truths of other people, and to try to wash away that lens of judgment, and to see people with the love that you are created with, that they are created with, that we all have this amazing connection that links all of humanity is love, not fear. Fear comes from our mind, and love comes from our soul. It's what we were created out of, is this amazing love. And so really, this is such a challenging topic because there have been a lot of judgments made on these kinds of things in the past. And so we absolutely have the power to change that. And it comes from how we treat one another. And so I love Ellen DeGeneres' line, and maybe I should end with that, but she always says at the end of every single episode, be kind to one another. And I think it's something we should really think more about. Be kind, be compassionate, be gentle. You never know what somebody's going through, what's happening in their head, what's happening in their life, what struggles they have survived and thrived through. And so just be a compassionate sounding board. Allow others to be seen and heard the way that you want to be seen and heard, and share your truth. And by sharing your truth, other people will start to do the same, and we'll live in this beautiful world of authenticity where we can be vulnerable together and heal together and share in this amazing practice of love. So I hope you have an absolutely beautiful day. and that you've enjoyed this episode. If you like the podcast and you want to rate and review it, you can send me a screenshot to abbyeokeefe@gmail.com, and I will send you the Kundalini meditation to clear the emotional past, as well as a personal card reading. So definitely do that if you are loving these episodes. I have a new episode coming in just a few days on Monday, since this was a bonus episode this week. So stay tuned for that. And remember that if you join the Healing Her Collective, a special offer for all of my podcast listeners out there to send me an email saying that you join the Healing Her Collective, and I will schedule a free 15-minute Reiki session with you to really help clear your chakras and heal from the inside. So I love you. Have the most beautiful day, and I will see you all on the next episode.